Okay.
All right, good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to share my screen. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to SEP's Winter Exhibition for 2020. So I'm going to run you through how to use the website and go through the MEAD program's work. So once you come on to the website, you'll see this icon saying enter. So you just click that. Um, my internet's glitchy, obviously. The page where you can either go through the exhibition through the projects of individual students, or you can go through as per the studios that have been conducted and go to the studio page. Within each studio page, you will find the projects of the students that were a part of the studio. So I'm just going to run you through the MEAD program. So if you go to all faculty and go to Faculty of Architecture, and from the programs you go to the MArch in Architectural Design. And if you click on the Studio tab, you will be able to see the 3 studios. And if you're on the Projects tab, you'll be able to see all the projects of the batches that have been part of the MEAD program in the monsoon 2020. So this is basically the studios. We have 3 studios that were conducted this semester. The first being the Foundation Studio, taken by Sankalp. The second one was a studio called the Quotidian Realm, which was taken by Professor Surya Kakani and Mehul Bhatt. And the third is Between Campus and Commons, which was taken by Shubhra Raji and Kevin Lowe. I'll just take you through all of them. Um, the first one, okay, let's go through the Foundation Studio in the beginning. So the Foundation Studio at SEPT is basically where students are trained to detail out a building with focus on its tectonics, environment, and program. Students analyze an urban situation as an informer of citing a building and response to its surroundings. They learn to push forward innovative building solutions to engage with the pressing and speculative nature of time. Key considerations accounted while dealing with the studio were an emphasis on space as an outcome of affordance and synthesis of detail, um, expression of detail as a response to structural forces, materials, climate, and program, representation and communication of expressive dimension of detail as a partner to space. Through this studio, students learn to develop an experimental attitude while tackling design problems, be aware and attempt design as a methodical search, develop abilities to adapt to design challenges within the constraints of use of basic to the latest available technology, develop ability to critically observe, analyze, and elucidate an architectural form at various scales while recognizing its presence in a physical context. We have a student here from the studio who will take you through a couple of projects. Um, Abhinav, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Abhinav.
Hi. Yeah, good morning, everyone. So, here on this webpage, we have different projects. The one like Center for Ecological Education. So, we will start from the first one, a case of schooling in urban environment. This is done by Yash Rajput. So, the first one, if you open, so yeah, can you open it? Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
it's just loading. Just give me a
Oh,
second.
okay. It's
Hi,
a
Abhinav,
little
you can
bit.
hear me, right?
Yeah. I can hear you. It's little bit actually heavy, so yeah, it will open. So we have
Okay,
many
I think
projects.
it's, yeah.
So yeah, the studio
I'll
was
just try open another one as well. Maybe you can just talk about the studio as a whole, and we can go through. I'll try Yash's project as well as yours.
yeah.
Akriti, if it helps, I can share that screen. It's opening the website projects.
So yeah,
Oh,
basically,
great. Okay, thanks so much. I'll just stop sharing.
basically the studio start with an exercise of problematizing the context. So as we were in pandemic situation locked at home, we started working on our own locality. So the as in this project it was Surat. So yes, started working on nearby locality of 800 by 800 meter area. So there he actually he gone through different uh, case studies where he like found out that noise was a problem, and it was creating problem to many educational institutions around. So he like going through various exercises, we found out how the problem was happening and all. And then moving to the next exercise, he developed opening for opening for the program. So this was the movement exercise for the opening. And then next we developed like grasshopper scripts and all, and we detailed the opening. And then moving next, we started experimenting with the structural models which was in this modeling exercise. So you can see different takes to understand the structure and the forces. And then we came up with different models, and we studied that. And we did it like in many different manners, as yes have done in with this material. Many of us have done with different materials, and we studied the behavior. And then we came up with some specific details, system assemblies, and uh, uh, custom details for the structure. So as in yes case, he came up with different bamboo and wood and steel mixed with steel. So he came up with the ideas, and he prepared his own structure for his program. So moving to next, these are some of the details which he developed. Yeah. So yeah, and the final, like how the structures were coming up. So these are some specific details which he developed. Coming next, then we came up with the more design idea, like how to use that develop structural details, and how to combine it to make a building. So we combined all the details and came up with a structural model which can provide space and provide a building, so for our architectural program. So yeah, coming next, uh, the when then we when then we came up to the finalizing. Hello.
We can hear
Yeah.
you. Yes.
So then we came up
I'm sorry. I
to
thought this was done.
no so we came up with the architectural programs. So you will find out how the program and how it is responding to the site and all in this slides. And then coming to next, then there are the sections and sectional perspectives and views, and then all the details about it, how the program is inside the building, and how the details are responding to the program, and how the details are responding to the building. And the next, we have some more details and the interior views and exterior views of the building, where you can get the glimpses of the building. So yeah, this is the this is the
The final product.
final product. Yeah.
Great. So, do I go back to the next
We'll just run
set?
you through Abhinav's project as well. Yeah. Thanks, Amol. So basically, the studio concentrated on three things. The first was the emphasis of space as an outcome of affordance and synthesis of detail. The second was that the expression of detail was a response to structural forces, to material, climate, and program. Representation and communication of expressive dimension of detail was a partner to space. So this was the overall idea with which the students were asked to engage with designing detail and then using the detail as an expression of architecture or
Yeah.
architectural language.
Yeah, so coming next to my project, this was my project, yeah. So it was a flood refuge and conservation center, as like my city faces flood every year. So going through so many studies of the local area, uh, I came up with the major problem which was happening almost every year from last 30 years. So yeah, so I started like problematizing the river. Like the river was the main thing, like, to was the main cause of the flood. So it is Ganges. My city is around Ganges. So there was the river course change happening from last 30 years. So that I have yeah I have
Sort of put it together as a
Course.
yeah, I studied that.
Yeah.
Like it was a very heavy task to do. So I got some data from different departments of geological departments. So that happened, and then these are the photos. Actually, this is just in within 800 meters. So yeah, and then there is one more problem happens to due to the flood, that it is a the dolphin area. So highest number of Gangetic dolphin lives in my area. Yeah. So that stretch, yeah, that was also a concern because of the flood happening every year. So I came up with this idea that to provide something for that. And then moving to the next exercise, the we developed opening, and we designed the movement and all. We detailed it, and then coming to next, we started developing the structure for it, like the program. And then I came up with some ideas which are there, and you can see it. And then coming to next, we developed the structural model which can help facilitating the program. And then these are the details which were derived. Yeah. So coming to the next, we
So even though the studio was online, Abhinav, you had physical models as well, right? While you were working?
Like even though studio was online and we were in different cities, like some of us, like for my case also, I was in like it's a remote city, so there was no things available. But yeah, I got help with my friends, and also we got it laser cut from different cities and mailed it to me.
That's great.
So yeah, it was very a tough task, but we did it.
Wow.
So
But that's
tough
well
to
done. So, yeah.
yeah.
That's
That's
really
really well done.
commendable. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, this we did. And then yeah, these are the details. So yeah, going through next, we have like we detailed it, like how the systems are joining together. And then there is this expression of system, how everything is coming together. So yeah, going to next, we have architecture program. And then these first two, actually it shows the situation, the flood, after flood, and flood, like after the flood and during the flood situation. So this happens to the site, and this was the concern. So yeah, coming to the next, we have different details in the sectional perspective in the section of the area. So this happens to the site when water enters, and then dolphin starts to crawling inside the low water area, and then many times they die. So that was the concern to doing this project. Then yeah, coming to the next, we have different details of the building facade and the structure system coming together. And yeah, then we have the glimpses of inside and outside of the building. Yeah. So this is the inside situation, and this is the during flood situation of that area. Actually, it comes just nearby the river, so it gets flooded, like highly flooded every year, like this. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Abhinav. It's a very interesting project.
Yeah. Thank you.
Shall I hand it back over to you, Prakriti, the screen?
Mo, do you mind sharing your screen because my internet's like really slow?
I can do that, yeah.
Great. So, do you want to go to the quotidian realm next?
Yes.
You'll again have to go to the studio part, yeah. Okay, so we'll take you through the next studio. This studio is titled The Quotidian Realm. It was taken by Professor Surya Kakani and Mehul Bhatt and assisted by myself. So I'll just give you a brief introduction to the studio. Amod, could you just scroll up to the 5 slides on the top?
Yes.
Yeah, thank
Them
you.
open?
So this basically there is a growing awareness. Yeah, this one, perfect. There is a growing awareness amongst the stakeholders to question the status quo of architectural production, to critically engage with different processes involving questions of resources that shape it, materials, water, energy, waste, labor, and so on, the quotidian realm of architecture. This studio investigates the idea of manifestos and specific canons of architecture in the context of their times and their histories to understand their relevance and move the discussion to the future, to look back at the present in a historical sense, to reimagine and reframe an individual manifesto that addresses the immediacies of our time. The statement of a manifesto for the present became an anchor for the project to investigate design. This manifesto was used to interrogate site, project, and program through the notions of materiality, structure, construction, technology, detailing, multiplicity of functions, complex programming, and building performance. The pedagogic emphasis of this investigative journey was to understand these through the conscious use of resources, local as well as global, and systems of production, vernacular and modern. The critical inquiry lay in provoking and thereby informing one's position as a producer of architecture in the context of our time. The studio was divided into 4 parts. I'll just take you through the 4. The first one is on the screen right now, where the students understood an architectural manifesto. And so basically the idea was that during the entire modern era, during the Industrial Revolution, architects responded to the global scenario with a particular language and expression of architecture. So through what the studio did was through their manifestos, we tried to understand what the background of the architects were, how they were thinking, and then how did they respond to their times, and how was architecture then a product of its time. Can we go on the next part, Amol?
Yes.
So the second exercise to the manifesto, in particular building designed by that architect, and study that building in detail. So each student had selected an architect and then selected a building done by the said architect. We analyzed it in detail in its various ways, like the structure, the material, the expression, tectonics, form, materiality, climate response, circulation, all of those things. And then by sort of disassembling the building, we try to disassemble the mind that went behind it and understood how the understanding of the modern period and of that era then translated into architectural design. So this was the second part of the studio. Coming to the third part, once we had spoken about the previous industrial age and the modern era, we quickly snap back into today's day. So the students were given, it was a time problem conducted over 1 week of the studio. The students were given 5 situations. They were paired up into groups of 2. Each pair had to respond to the given situation in the sense that they had to come up with a position statement, design a program, and then execute an architectural design which is an expression of their statement. So we had ecologically and economically fragile systems. So we had the landslide prone regions of Darjeeling, we had the changing floodplains of the Kosi River, we had the earthquake prone areas of Kutch. We had the economically fragile tribes of the Bastar region, and we had the Hollywood Basti slum in Ahmedabad. All of the students studied these situations in great detail and came up with programs as a response to the situations, and then designed and went into the complete structural design and smaller details for their given programs. The second of the third part, which is basically contextualizing our current time, was also divided into 2 weeks. Amod, can you switch to the next slide, 3B? Thank you. So the first part was that there were a set of 20 readings selected from various fields of technology, economy, politics, environment, culture, society, space making, and all of these texts were read and discussed by the students. So we had a couple of debates and discussions within the studio itself. After that, we conducted a webinar where we had expert panelists on each of these topics coming in and speaking about society through the lens of technology, through the lens of environment and culture. It was moderated by Himanshu Bharte and Kaivan Mehta, who basically tied in all of these questions with the questions of the studio. After this, we come to the last part of the studio, where basically the students were asked to design a program through their understanding of the current times. So every student ended up selecting their neighborhood, because in the situation of an online studio, we were all in different cities in the country. So every student selected their neighborhood, studied it, and came up with a response to their understanding of the everyday activities of their neighborhoods. And then we ended with a design, development, and detailed design of those projects. We have Ashwin here to run you through the projects. Ashwin, are you around? Hi.
Hi, Prakriti.
Hi. So I'll just take you through, basically we had 10 projects. Amod, can you just be on that last slide for a second? Then we'll just go into Ashwin's. Yeah, just wait for a second.
Yeah, we're on that screen.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so the first one was a community riverfront scheme done by Tanvi, where she was exploring the idea of riverfront projects and how they can engage their local communities better in and help them in their everyday activities. The second one, called Apni Dhani, done by Jayati, was a project where she wanted to explore how the idea of housing developments can be done through resource conscious methods. And since this project was in Rajasthan, she was looking at water, at harvesting rainwater and using the same for the development itself. So basically how housing developments can be, try to be self-sufficient. The third one, we'll go into a little more detail. Ashwin will take us through his project. It was basically a marketplace for fishermen in Chennai. Ashwin, do you want to go through it right now, or should I go through all of the projects first?
Maybe you just give a glance of every project. I'll then detail my note. Yeah.
Great. The fourth project you can see on the screen is a co-working space done by Roshita. So she basically did an adaptive reuse of one particular floor in an entire building, and she used that floor to connect the building itself. It was a very large building, as well as all the landmarks around, to reimagine the idea of co-working today and see the potential of then connecting a co-working space to the city itself. The next project is titled Feeding the Neighborhood. This project was basically done by Sudarshan in the city of Mysore, where he saw that because of our current centralized way of food distribution and food networking, the country is heavily dependent on various states for their everyday needs of fruits and vegetables. And he also found an existing resource of barren lands that are waiting to be turned into parks. But there is this gap of around 10 years where they're left untouched. So his idea was to use one such parcel of land for these 10 years and create a temporary structure that can be used to grow the neighborhood. Also connected with an idea of a water network that runs through the entire city. The next one is retrofitting an urban government school. This was done by Yamini. Yamini's idea was also in adaptive reuse. She wanted to see how government schools can be more meaningful and experiential, not with some major and flashy architectural design, but with smaller interventions like an acupuncture of sorts, which have a greater meaning when put together as a whole. The next one is called Meri Gali Mein, which is a center for neighborhood done by Karthik. This was in Ghaziabad and Delhi in that region. What Karthik noticed was that the urban park over there was not a very safe space, not a very public space. And he wanted to see how through design, the space can be made more democratic, more open to the public. So he designed a community center and a thoroughfare going through the park with that idea. The idea was basically to have eyes on the street. The next project done by Himanshu is called The Habitat. This was a rain basera in the city for migrants coming from all over. So Himanshu also did adaptive reuse project where he looked at how the existing infrastructure can be converted into meaningful space, meaningful homes to empower migrants when they are in a new city looking for work. The next project is called the Neighborhood Lounge. This was done by Nitin in Bangalore. Basically, Nitin was looking at how public infrastructure can be used by the neighborhood itself. So the project was viewed as an extension of your living room. So his idea was to enliven the space with more neighborhood activities and also and cater to all the various sections of society. So not just the residents, but also the carpenters, the electricians, and the drivers who are working in the houses of the neighborhood. Place for all of them and an area for everybody to come together and be more connected in today's day. The last project on the screen is a transient hub and shelter for medical migrants. This was also in Bangalore, done by Sanjana. Sanjana basically noticed that there is a hospital which is catering to a large section of medical migrants from the neighboring states, but these migrants don't have any place to live. So she found a building which is currently not in use and has done small interventions that building into a temporary shelter for all the medical migrants visiting the hospital nearby. That's about it, an overall view of all the 10 projects. Ashwin, would you like to go into yours in detail?
Yeah, sure.
Ashwin, you're on.
I can't see my project. Yes, I think so. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ashwin, and I'm from Chennai. And this project, in a wake of pandemic, we were forced to be in an online studio. But this has provided an opportunity to look at fragilities all around the country in different parts of the world through our projects. One of my project is based in Chennai. It's an estate called a Sportshore Estate, which was a series of fishing hamlets that was developed into a series of housing board apartments. I'll get into it in detail, but initially the first exercise was for us to look into uh, understanding architectural manifestos of various architects. Mine was to look into Peter Zumthor. If you can go to the next slide. So the method was to look into his pedagogy and his design philosophies. And Peter Zumthor being a very introverted person, it was best that I looked into his own books as canons. So this is how I came up understanding his architectural manifesto and how he responded to his own time period and socio-political stances. So we can go to the next one. So this is just explaining what his philosophies are. And the next one was to understand an architectural system designed by himself. In my case, I took the Brother Claus Field Chapel, and how his design philosophies were actually reflected in such. You can just go through it, and we can see that how he has been influenced by art, architecture, and how it is seminal in its own sense. So this entire exercise was to understand how it actually responded to the time and socio-political, economic, uh, uh, cultural norms that existed. So yeah, the next one was a time problem. It was a resilience where we have been given an urban fragility, more of an economic fragilities of the Bastar tribes. This was a project done by Karthik Nakana and myself. So we kind of studied the Hollywood Basti in Ahmedabad, which is in Gulbai Tekra. We jotted on the concerns, we jotted on the context, and in response to that, how do we respond? The response was to keep an idea of to instill an idea of impermanence and celebrate their identity and bring back the city to the Basti. And this was done through temporal structures and temporal methods of construction, where the people who reside in them can have a sense of ownership and belonging and identity within themselves. So the idea was that the Basti would incrementally grow just based on a framework that we have provided. So yeah, next one. So these are just the details of what the architectural details of how it would be executed. So yeah, this kit of paths where multiple iterations would be possible. So through our several readings that Prakriti has already mentioned, and also our a lot of webinars from esteemed professionals from their own fields in fields of society and culture, society and technology, and society of environment, we've been able to make a position paper which kind of uh, helped us basically write our own manifesto. And how so mine was to look at architecture through a lens of political inquiry, and how we could blur polarities and have an inclusive environment. So these were just this is just a paper which jots down that. And at the end you can see, can you go to the next slide please? Amu, yeah. And by the end of it, I was able to get no, the previous one. Sorry, the design position and strategies. And by the end of it, I was able to put on a design position and strategies that would best suit my manifesto, which is basically designing the incomplete or to view architecture as an open framework. And my idea was to look at lexicon, basically the meanings of the word, and to how to appropriate and reappropriate them, and how it would suit the design of my design philosophy or design language. Yeah, next one, please. So, like I was saying, foreshore estates were a series of wishing hamlets. The issue with the foreshore estate, as in, if you're looking at it through a lens of urban fragility, is that they were quite segregated from the rest of the city. And the idea was to jot down all those quotidian activities, the everyday activities of and the practice of everyday, and how would that act as an anchor point which would synergize the city even furthermore. So the program and the proposal would actually be a sort. This is just a study which showcases the history, the general location, the site context, etc. You can just run through the study, and it was also the next slide, please. The next slide, just a context study and everything. This was.
Yeah.
So this was basically a fishing hamlet by the sea near Marina Beach, which was one of the most prime real estate. Uh, so you would have seen that it was done using the study was done using cartographic mapping, where I was able to kind of look into the practice of every day and how, and also identify what the fragilities are, what the concerns were, and these were the concerns basically: informal market conditions, sanitation issues, the lack of social cultural spaces, or the how the fishing practices could be more ethical, and there were various proposals which came holistically as one, and this is a collage explaining how it is in the present day, and how I intended to connect it with the rest of the city. You might also notice that technology was involved, so that architecture doesn't has a domain of its own addressing urban fragilities, thereby putting us into place. The next slide. So the proposal was basically the formalization of fish market and toilets to address the sanitation issue, a food hub to synergize the city, and also auction houses and other stuff to make the market more formal or yeah. So the method of designing was to look into existing models of markets and to legitimize them and to reappropriate them. And in a frugal way, the building was designed using casuarina gullies, which was abundantly available in the coastal regions, which was quite lightweight. And considering the CRZ zone, it made sense. And how these casuarina gullies act as an open framework which enables appropriation, adaptation, to incrementally grow and to do it themselves. So thereby we look at resources not only as material but also as labor, the people who occupy it, and the people who actually use it, the user consumers of it. So yeah, it's just a reappropriation of what the existing models were. So there's a food park which has the food truck zone and the kiosks where the fisher folk can actually sell the best fish in the town, thereby bringing the city. Uh, this area becomes more than a residential zone. It becomes a place where you eat, where you dine, where you have theater experience and etc. So yeah, you can just go through it. It's similar to what it is. About the next one. So the toilets, we were relooking. I was relooking at the toilets where open defecation was addressed, and also I was looking at providing other extra spaces such as auction areas, which would further enforce that the market spaces were legitimized. And there was also a skill development center which was planned within the skills areas of the residential, thereby showing that it was the space was also a resource and how to do it frugally. And also very small intervention, minimal interventions could make more sense by a simple articulation of plinth, even by unbuilding or building minimally could make more difference, is what my project intends to convey. So yeah, this has been my project. It's been a pleasure presenting to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwin.
Thank you. Thanks, Ashwin. All right, so just to wind up a little bit faster, I'm just going to run you through our third studio titled Between Campus and Commons. And since Amod is here, Amod will be taking you through in a little bit more detail about the studio and a couple of the projects. Um, yeah, this studio was conducted by Shubhra Raje and Kevin Lowe. I'm just going to read out the introduction in the beginning. A series of stereotypical concepts have gotten encrypted into the ideas of prestigious institutions in India. Largely, the notion of a dream of many, but within the reach of a few, prevails across these institutions. As it is observed, most of these were established on exclusive pieces of land in the then fringes of the cities. As the cities sprawled over time, these self-sufficient institutions started appearing as islands imposed within the cities. In this studio, we are investigating the scenario through the case of the Indian Institute of Management campus in Ahmedabad. The studio questions the relevance of a formally developed campus master plan to its neighborhood as well as its internal functioning, and proposing relevant additions, subtractions, and modifications to the current setup to reinforce the connection between the campus and the commons. Amod, would you like to take us through the studio?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
So like Prakriti mentioned, when we took a case of formalized campuses across the country, IIM Ahmedabad tops the list. In fact, not in the country, but across the world as the most renowned masterpieces. So when we had to critically analyze what is the ground reality and how things are functioning on the campus, we sort of came together as a group of 12 of us and then studied the campus in and out. Although this was a online course, we were virtually on the campus all the time. So we modeled out the entire campus and looked at how spaces work. So this campus in specific is again situated in closer to the center of Ahmedabad right now, but it was built when it was built, it was outside the campus. So when we look at this context, the campus is split into two halves by a ring road. So there's a huge traffic corridor happening between the two campuses. So we had to first analyze this set of campuses in various steps and figure out what the issues really were and how it functions or doesn't functions very well. And by doing that, we sort of found out that there are 12 specific areas which we could rework on, and 12 of us could take up one part each and then start developing into that. So the primary concern was the connection between the two campuses. These are two independent campuses functioning as completely different entities because of the repetition of activities on either side, because you have all of the activities like residences and dining and academic block and all of that happening in two sections separately. Although students do have a small underpass under the highway to connect to the other side of the campus, and they do have classes exchange on the other side, but they sort of end up in their own cocoons on either side. So further looking at these, we dwelled into how we could change the activities or plug in separate kinds of architectural elements along with spatial additions to them so that it still is an integrated campus, yet it's open to a lot more than what it is now. So these were a few projects that we looked at where, like Prakriti did in the previous session, we could have a look at the 12 what say. Prakriti?
Yeah, you can just run us through the 12 and maybe talk about in detail of one project.
Sure. Okay. So
Right.
in this, so like we have the 12, we first understood the idea that the library of the on the campus is a fortified entity just like the campus, and you don't have access to that on a general basis, nor can people from the outside access it. So it makes knowledge sacred. And then we looked at how this could eventually be readapted for a different activity, and we shift the library in a place where we could make it more accessible to the public as well as have it well connected to the students. So that's the first thing that we did, is introducing a chancellery within that building. So that sort of fixes in an additional activity. So this was an adaptive reuse project. And the next that we had to do, like we mentioned first, was connecting the two campuses. And the central plaza between these two campuses was what actually helped connecting the two campuses. And the idea here was that we lift up the vehicular corridor so that we get a pedestrianized access below. So we put small bridge on top of this, so that the entire neighborhood can connect down to the space below the flyover which we introduced, which is right here in between the two campuses, the gray strip. And we introduce the activities in between them. So one, it helps the two campuses to become one, and two, it sort of helps connect the neighborhood back onto the central plaza, as we call it. So moving to the third one, we look at expansion of that connection into either of the sides. So we connect the Louis Kahn Plaza, which is the renowned plaza on the campus, to the other side, which is the Forum Tower and the new campus, which is being built right now. Part of it is already built, and rest of it is being added. So in this project, Satya connected the two campuses and developed a seamless pedestrian flow along these two connections, and how he managed to sort of develop that access through the two, not just as a visual access, but that ended up as a physical connection between the two. So this is where the both campuses sort of came together, and it became a single entity with the flyover going on top. Then we sort of moved on to how the residential neighborhoods within the campus function, and they become clusters of independent activities. And this is on the newer campus, and we had to be very critical about how these buildings function and what do they respond to the campus one and to the climate two, and with how does it support the interaction between the students and the campus, and the students and the neighborhood. So Pavitra here sort of analyzed all of these problems and modified these dormitory blocks by adding a few elements and subtracting a few activities on the ground. So if we look at um, an activity map that she's presented, so we observed that the north of all of these buildings was blocked with blank walls, with concrete retaining walls, and which presented an opportunity to her to sort of add more housing to densify this further. Instead of expanding horizontally, she could densify the areas which were available on the site. So in this proposal, she has proposed to add on to the blocks and open out the ground floor in a way that public could enter these spaces and sort of move through these, still not hindering the privacy of the students. So these were the additions in yellow that you see, and the greens sort of open up as a single datum on the ground. Are we doing good on time? Can we, or do we need to speed up, Prakriti?
I think we need to speed up a bit.
I
Sorry.
could spare another 5 more minutes. Amod, Prakriti will have to wind up soon.
Sure.
All
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
all right.
So I won't dwell into the projects, but I can hover over them and talk about them. So something similar we did in Amar did with the entrance plazas, where he opened out the ground and connected all of the public spaces onto the educational hub. So it allowed the public to come into incubation centers. Nehal's project was another retrofitting, where a management development center which had a lot of rooms for residences for shorter courses was converted into a hotel management center. So she converted this project as rooms by themselves and had this as a part of the campus. Tejan's project here, the Junction 23, was a new addition to the campus, where prime real estate at the junction of the outer ring road and the IM highway sort of was sitting vacant for, and it was sort of the Robin Hood project for the entire campus. So this could sort of give the funds back to the campus, where you could rent these out to high-end offices, and at the same time provide opportunities for on-campus recruitments onto these offices. And when we looked at Zalak's project first, when the Chancellery was introduced, Priyam took over the second part of it, where she designed the library, the new library on the campus, and connected this back to the public realm. So the next was my project, Amod's project, which sort of looked at how the dormitories function and how they were treated as sacred blocks. But when we dwelled into the details of it, we sort of realized that there were circulation flaws, and there was issues with privacies, and there were rooms which were converted into dining rooms or large double height spaces converted or retrofitted as bedrooms right now. So we sort of converted that into a more public street and added a more densified zone within the campus on the old side, on the east side of the campus. Then we look at Nishi's project, which was detailing out these densifications for both residential setup for students and also for the faculty. Then Shubham Pani sort of looked at the old dining block designed by Anant Raje and picked it up and retrofitted with a students' facility, which sort of became the hub for all the students to come together, and how that sort of had to weave in back again with all of the rest of the retrofitted buildings. Then Shubhang on the other side of the campus, the newer side, he picked up and connected the blank wall which was happening all along the west facade. They sort of connected back the neighborhood onto the campus. So this allowed for people to have a thoroughfare onto the campus. So ultimately, 12 of us put together, formulated a combined master plan, which is a presentation of what was and what is now. That's how we sort of wrapped up the studio. Yeah, Prakriti.
Thanks, Amol. All right, so I hope you've had a good idea about all the three studios. All of them, although very different in their natures, are extremely relevant and very interesting. And I think on the behalf of the students, I can share our excitement with you in putting up our winter exhibition, and would love it if you would go through our work in more detail. Just to run you through how to navigate the website. Amod, I think I'll start sharing
Yes,
now. Is that
let
okay?
me. Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, I hope you can see my screen. So basically, when you enter the CEPT exhibition website, which is exhibition.cept.ac.in, V20, which is Winter Exhibition 2020, you have the icon that says enter. So you click on that and you will be taken to the venues and projects through projects of individual students and studios. If you enter the Faculty of Architecture and the Masters in Architectural Design, you will be taken to the page with the three studios that were conducted in the MAED program this semester. If you click on each of them, you will be taken to the studio page. So we have the Foundation Studio taken by Professor Sankalp. You have the second studio, which is between Campus and Commons, taken by Kevin Lowe and Shubhra Raje. And then you have the third one called the Quotidian Realm, which is taken by Professor Surya Kakani and Mehul Bhatt. On each of these pages, in the beginning, you will see an introductory 5 slides. You can click on the slide and zoom in to see them in detail. There is a brief introduction about the studio and details about the professor, TA, the code, and the faculty. And as you scroll down, you will be taken to the individual projects of the students on each one of them to view them in detail. So that's all from us. Thank you. I hope you have a good time going through our work.
Thank you, Prakriti. Thank you, everybody, for joining in today and explaining your projects. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, you too. Thanks, Amod. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Abhinav. Bye. Thanks, Ashwin.
Thank you, Prakriti. Bye bye.